Hey everybody, so welcome to House Calls, the podcast. How you doing, Matt?
Ty, I'm good. Post Thanksgiving, I'm doing A-okay. How about you?
I'm good.
Good.
A lot of people were talking about the podcast over Thanksgiving, but we got some serious criticism from two of our frequent listeners that we were talking about how to do laundry. I don't think they trust us on that topic.
You know, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. But people have come to us as we are the source of all things. So we haven't been wrong yet. So I don't know why people won't trust us.
So we did agree that we were going to do a public service announcement of giving one football statement for the Commanders and the Ravens for people who want to sound like they know stuff but don't want to watch the games.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
So what's your Commander statement?
I mean, let's be honest. I mean, it's not even a second year slump, but this is what we thought would happen last year. And I think we are right where we need to be, and we'll be better going forward.
So for the Ravens, I'm going to say it is, hey, you just can't turn the ball over like that and expect to win in the NFL. Though the other team is getting paid as well.
Yeah, I think I stand by both of those. I like it.
And it's how well you're playing in the playoffs. Like all you got to do is get in. You're going to have to beat the best teams anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Survive in advance.
So following up on our gratitude one that we did, one of the things that the coach of the Ravens and his brother, the coach of the Chargers, frequently says is, "Who's got it better than us?"
That's right. Their
And then
father
the whole
started
team says, "Nobody."
That's right. Nobody. Yep.
So I was thinking about how people have that attitude going into the holidays.
Okay.
Kind of a little bit of appreciating all the little things.
Yeah.
But is that innate in us, or is that something that can be learned? So I was thinking about like a simple thing, like I'm going to be making 5 trips to the airport, right?
Okay.
And I enjoy making the trip to the airport because it's time with me and that kid or in-law by myself.
Right.
But then on the ride back, I'm like, I just listen to music or whatever podcast. I'm like, we have all these luxuries that make going to the airport so easy. And even on the flying thing, when you fly, like you have your book on tape, you have your music, you have your movie, everything has gotten so easy. Yet a lot of people complain so much about these things that are luxuries.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's the greatest when people are like, oh, the Wi-Fi wasn't working on the airplane. And you got to be like, dude, you're on an airplane.
Yeah. Yeah.
You were flying,
And even
California.
just the fact that your kid can get to, like my daughter who is in Texas can get to see us pretty easily.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
That's right. But I think appreciation of the little things only comes as you get older and you kind of become more reflective.
Yeah, I do think that sometimes maybe people who struggle with the holidays, it's because they're so focused on the big things.
Right.
So like my example would be like some of the little things are like Mary Kate laughing so hard she's snorting through her nose.
Yep.
Like that wasn't scheduled. Nobody had put effort into it. That kind of thing. Ryan took Roddy out to teach him how to drive stick shift because Ryan has a stick shift car and I'm in the back seat. So much fun. It was like Pop Racer, Racer X, and Speed Racer all in the car together.
I have no idea who those 3 people are, but okay, I believe you. Yeah, those are it. When you hear the family giggling and laughing and just absolutely.
And even just appreciating, like, yes, it takes a lot of effort to make the food, but how lucky are we to have all that food?
Dude, preach on. You've got it. No, you are spot on. And how lucky are we that we have family, we have food, and we have shelter? It's the little stuff. Those are the things that are important.
Yep. And once again, nobody got hurt in our family football game.
Well, that's too bad. I know Chesapeake Orthopedic was looking for they did that Black Friday sale on ACLs, but maybe next year.
It's because we're all in our Thanksgiving football training program. We train all year long for this game.
Did you have any pregnant women play this year?
No, I had plays designed for her. She's due, I think, this week. This is Nevi Fernandez. I had plays designed for her running up the middle, but she was with us in the evening, but was with her husband, Matt's family. In the
Okay.
day.
All right.
Yes.
All right. That's too bad. Well,
we did have a 58-year-old soon-to-be grandmother throwing dimes, playing quarterback, scrambling, running all over the place is her mother. That was pretty impressive. And her sister, I think, was the MVP.
Okay. Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a big statement from you.
Yeah.
I
Nicky
mean,
Fernandez making cuts in the open field, running. I
got
mean,
it.
no free safety is going to be able to change directions like that in
But
Taggart.
so was she able to plant her foot and then change directions
Yeah, without cleats.
without cleats?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That I mean, she is the understated athlete of that family. So that's does not surprise me.
And I had a great time, even though I threw the game sealing interception. I had Adam Smith running a post. He was open, and I just didn't want to overthrow him. Perfect spiral, but took a little bit off of it. He slowed down. Roddy House cut under, intercepted it. Heartbreaking.
Did Roddy taunt you at all?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There was
Yeah.
gloating. There was
Gloating?
making fun of me. Yeah.
I mean, I don't appreciate that. Act like you've been there before, Roddy. But you know who wouldn't do something like that? Today's guest.
Yes. Yeah.
This guy is an officer and a gentleman. His name is Bert O'Donovan, but his call sign is T-Rex, and
Yes.
we'll let him tell us why. But he is a Naval Academy graduate. We got Army Navy coming up in 2 weeks,
Oh yeah.
so excited to talk to him and learn about his journey and why they call him T-Rex.
When I told my youngest Roddy, who we were interviewing, he was kind of like, "Well, which ones are his parents? Where does he fit in?" Because, and it was just kind of funny because he's like, "How many O'Donovans are there?"
It's a great
And
question.
I think there were 8 siblings, and then all of them reproduced. I'm like, if you're going to take over the world, you better reproduce, and that
Yeah.
the O'Donovans have taken care of that.
Yeah, you and Elon, you're all about the population growth, and that's been the O'Donovans from day one. So it's been great to see. But it's funny with all that population growth, what's the tallest one? Like 5'8"?
No, James Fitz. James Fitz is like 6'3".
Yeah, I know. I was just joking.
You forgot about James Fitz.
No, yeah, but I was just going with people last name O'Donovan.
Yeah, I believe Terry is the giant of the family at 5'8".
Okay, that makes
Yes,
sense.
I
Yeah, the
believe
Grand
so.
Poobah. Okay,
Yeah.
well, good. Let's talk to T-Rex and figure out why they call him T-Rex.
Okay.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to an all new edition of House Calls the Podcast. I got my friend Dr. Ty House and our friend Captain Brett T-Rex O'Donovan with us today. Brett, we're going to talk to you about your life as an officer and a gentleman. But at first, I just think I want to know is, Ty, when you were in the Village People, were you the naval guy or were you the construction worker? I forget.
I was the construction worker because 'cause
Yeah.
I've done some construction. So
So thanks for making the time. So you are a Naval Academy graduate. It's always the career path, or how do we end up here?
So always the career path is a challenging story, but the Naval Academy part, I'd wanted to go to the Naval Academy since at least as far back as about 5th grade.
Okay.
So just growing up in Sherwood Forest in the summers and being right down the river always had an impact. And then one of my dad's best friends from Sherwood growing up was Wally Massenberg.
Mm-hmm.
And right in the mid 80s time frame, he had command out in Hawaii and had just gotten stationed back into the DC area. So I remember spending times with his sons, Ian and Bo, and looking through some of the memorabilia and things that he had from his command tour and thinking that looks pretty awesome. That looks like something I may want to do. So that was some of the early influences there. And then from there, I looked to try and line things up to do that would help me get into the Naval Academy. I
Such
wasn't very,
as
I
like
wasn't very big. So one of the
what?
things,
But you're an O'Donovan. Are you
I mean,
sure?
my driver's license when I was 17 says I was 5'2" at the time. Believe my,
And now what's it now?
I'm up at 5'5.5".
All right,
So it's
you are a
okay.
tall O'Donovan.
But realistically, like my freshman year, sports physical, fall freshman year, and I'd stayed back in 4th grade. I was 95 pounds. So like, I can't give up 8 pounds even at 103 wrestling.
Right. Right.
It's but my school had a really nationally recognized crew team, so looked to try and do that, and I was a coxswain on the crew team.
Oh, that
Freshman
was
aren't allowed.
LaSalle, right?
St. Joe's Prep. Come on,
St. Joe. Okay, that was a joke. That was a little
that's a
dramatic.
dig.
That hurt. That hurt.
That's a Philly joke. That's good.
I know. You're welcome.
And then freshman year, you're not allowed to go on the crew team in the fall. Freshman year, so I did cross country, just working to try and get in better shape and things like that. So that was one of the things I ended up doing. Another thing I did, I was just after Sherwood camp was over, like I don't know if I necessarily want to go back and be a counselor right now. I've got to see what else is out there. And there's something called the Science and Engineering Apprenticeship Program that's run
Okay.
by the Navy writ large, and it gives internship opportunities for high school students in the summertime to work at some of the research labs and things like that. So I ended up doing that for 2 summers and it was in the networking department back in the mid '90s, back when you had before Twitter or Facebook, when you just had the message boards. So it was a really interesting time.
So Ty, just so you know, message boards are not bulletin boards, right? They're not like little post-it notes. He is not tech savvy, and I mean that as nicely as I can. So
So Matt,
speak
what I was
English.
going to say
Yeah.
is one of our themes has been like for that teenager, high school, college age that you don't have to have it figured out. And we've had a lot of people who found their careers later. So this
Right.
is interesting because Brett was laser focused at a young age.
Yeah. But laser focused on getting into the Naval Academy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. And then part of that also in the summer while I was doing that program, there's a lot of youth rowing in the Philadelphia area. So I was still doing club rowing in the afternoon, and the schedules was such that in that program it was like a government flex schedule. You could start anytime between 6 and 9:30 in the morning, and then you worked for 8.5 hours. So I started my start time based on being able to get to practice and then
Oh
driving
wow.
home. So I was generally gone from the house at 6:37 in the morning and not getting home till 7:38 at night, going right from South Philly at the Navy Yard up to the river. But I loved it. It was great being part of a team still, even in the summertime. You met different guys. It's a little different vibe when you're doing summer club stuff than when you're in the high school event. So it was a great experience and a lot of fun.
Were you laser focused on rowing for Navy or did you think about West Point or Air Force or any of the other military academies?
I was laser focused on Navy, and then actually I really wanted to go into the Navy. So Navy ROTC would have been my backup. Penn State, at least at the time, had rolling admissions, and my SATs and grade combo were good enough. If you applied earlier, it was easier to get in, and you
Mhm.
didn't have to write an essay. You literally had to fill out like a bubble sheet and send it in. So I hit that easy button. I got into Penn State main campus in like November. I'm like, I'm out.
Yeah.
Nice.
If I don't get in the Naval Academy, I'll go to Penn State. Great school, great place to be. My mom's like, "Don't you think you want one more? How about you go Villanova? Uh, try to apply for Villanova." So Villanova, I applied early option, but at that point, like I also tend to procrastinate a fair amount. So the Villanova one, literally, I like was on a typewriter typing my essay because word processors weren't necessarily that good yet in 95, 96. And I hand delivered it to the admissions office at like 5 in the afternoon. I'm like, this is due today. Was it due by
Oh my god.
4 or or will you take it now? And they're like, we'll take it. Get out of here. So
Oh my
I had
god.
gotten into Villanova too. So I had some choices for safety schools. So I probably would not have done crew either at Penn State or Villanova.
That is great advice, I think, for anybody who's young or who has kids that are applying to college is if you can find a rolling admissions school that you get into early in your senior year, that you could see yourself there and be like, hey, I will enjoy that place. It takes all the stress out because then all the competitive schools are just like icing on the cake. You're already somewhere where you can see yourself and be happy. And the tremendous amount of stress that helps with, I'm telling everybody, always do that with your kids.
Absolutely. The other focus area I had is I did want to get into computers. So I wasn't sure computer science or computer engineering. So I actually went and Villanova was really good at computer engineering. So I forget how I did it, but I just remember sitting down with like the head of their computer engineering department and saying, what's the difference between computer engineering and computer science? And you kind of walk through that computer engineering is a little more like double E based, computer science is more straight code. But either way, it was just reaching out and trying to get information. And then Penn State and Villanova both had good technical programs. So realistically, I knew I wanted to do something technical early on and then went from there. Ty, to your point on recommendations for folks looking at getting into college as well, a couple other things that helped me a lot is I was lucky enough that my parents had a good network. But so the Naval Academy, I didn't have great grades. I was like low Bs, which again, when you're trying to get into a top school, low Bs can be a little tough. But I had decent SATs and hard classes. But I went in and I really prepped well for the interviews. And in the Naval Academy process, you have to get a nomination before you can get an appointment, nominations from a congressman. The way our congressman was set up, he had a panel and he didn't touch it politically. And it was literally he would take the recommendations of his panel. But I interviewed well enough, and my dad didn't tell me this till after I get in, but I actually in the newspaper my name was first. So I was actually the first recommendation out of that congressional district, which probably helped. But part of that was my parents had a friend who was on the admissions committee at Georgetown, and he offered to do an interview. Well, I still called him up and talked to him and went and did a practice interview. So
Oh,
actually getting ready and doing those things and not only having the opportunity, but taking advantage of them and being uncomfortable as an 18-year-old kid trying to call a guy up in his 40s or 50s to be able to practice and do some of these things to be prepared and be ready, I thought was important.
Absolutely, absolutely. But
What was it like
what
when
was it
you
like to have
got
Ty
that
talk over me?
yeah,
What? Okay.
when you got that letter that let you in, obviously you're so excited, a lifelong dream has happened. Was a little part of you like you got, what's it called? Plebe summer coming up. Was a little part of you like, I could go to Penn State.
Yeah, like the dog who caught the bus.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the and Matt, I've been listening to this podcast a couple when you guys invited me on. I listened to a couple, and it's not the first time Ty's talked over you.
Yeah.
I think it's
Welcome to my world.
well,
Yeah.
we'll chalk it in as the second time. You're due for at least 3 or 4 more. But
Thank
the
you.
so
My
the
New
bottom
Year's
line was actually
resolution is gonna be to let Matt talk more.
And maybe the guest. I don't know. Anyhow.
so I ended up getting I actually got my admissions on April 15th. And I had done some weekend work at my mom's office, like weekend reception work when I was out of season. And a lot of people in her office were like, I feel better about paying my taxes now. So that was kind of cool. And then I Day is the first day of plebe summer. My 1996 was also the year the movie Independence Day came out, and it debuted on July 2nd. So there's like a commercial countdown. It's like I Day, 7 days, and you're like, ah.
Oh my
So
God.
there's a little bit of fear on that. But the other side of it, the end of plebe summer, many ask me, they're like, dude, I know you. I don't see you making it all the way through the Naval Academy. They're like, how did you do that? What happened? But the end of plebe summer, my parents knew that as a possibility, and they talked to some other people and some other folks that had their kids drop out in plebe summer, and then they were jammed up, and they didn't have
Right.
anywhere to go, so they had to take a semester off or take a year off or whatever else. So my parents, Penn State, in-state school, it was like a $1,500 to hold your place.
Deposit. Yep.
So parents' weekend, my mom came in and she goes, "Hey, I know this is what you want to do, but realize, and we know we told you to never quit anything, but this is like your whole life. It's okay if you don't do this. It'll be okay. And you have a dorm room and a class schedule at Penn State in 2 weeks if you want it." And
Oh,
I'm like,
Wow.
but plebe summer, it was hard and there's a lot of challenges, but I also enjoyed it. I enjoyed the challenge. I enjoyed the camaraderie. There were pieces of it that I thought, I still think I want to be part of this. I said, Mom, thanks, but this is what I think I want to do. So
so
literally at the end of plebe summer, when you're in the grind, and at that point, I think I was like 115 pounds and 5'6" because I'd lost a lot of weight and I didn't have a lot of weight to lose at that point. And yeah, so it was always an opportunity. And I just really appreciate my parents going out for that. But we're not paying for college. What's $1,500 as a backup plan?
Right.
So it's
All right. My grandfather is a Naval Academy graduated in 1906. My niece Lila is in her second year there now. And when she did her I Day, the whole family went. And I encourage everyone to go. It is one of the greatest things, most patriotic things you'll ever see, because you've got these kids that are scared, don't know what's going on. The boys already have their heads shaved like me. They're lined up and they walk in and they go into Bancroft Hall. And literally the last thing you hear is this door that, I don't know, Brett, this door's feels like it's 3 feet thick, slams shut, and it's just echoes, and that's it. And these kids go into Bancroft, and these families know they're not going to see or talk to them for 6 weeks. I mean, it's crazy, but it's so inspiring at the same time to see
yeah.
these people that are like, yeah, I'm doing this. And again, hats off to everybody that walks through that door, and no problem if you bail, if you get into it, it's not for you. But man, oh man, what
And
an
on top of
experience.
the detailers, as part of the indoctrination, like they're right into you right away. They've also got Christmas music blaring because anyone who doesn't live close enough to go home for Thanksgiving, the next time they're going to see their parents is Christmas.
Oh,
So they're cranking Christmas music going, next time you see mommy and daddy, it's Christmas time. Here we
oh,
go.
oh my goodness.
So it may be kinder and gentler now. So maybe they don't do that anymore, but they should. That was like an initial tactic. And then and
Wow.
I know Lila was actually my daughter's counselor the summer before that.
Right.
So I talked to Lila a couple of times before she went in, and it was
Yep.
it's pretty awesome experience, and great to see her going out there and doing that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. She's crushing it. So proud of her and proud of anybody that's
So
there.
as you're at the Naval Academy and you're doing this just college experience, it's very different than everybody else. How quickly do you start thinking about like what's your career going to be after the academy? Like basically, I guess it's like choosing a specialty in medical school and then the competition to get into each one of those. Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so I've got 2 or 3 on these. One that I think I really want to hit on. Just I've heard you guys talk a lot about confidence and doing hard things and making sure that hard things will make you better. But one of the biggest things I remember plebe summer, we did the Marine Corps obstacle course. the first obstacle on the Marine Corps obstacle course is a pull-up bar that's maybe 6.5, 7 feet high that you have to get over. And it's just a bar that you have to get over. And I'm sitting here, I was like 2/3 of the way down the line. I'm like, I don't even know if I'm going to reach the damn thing, let alone get over it. But you go first in line. They said go, and they'd given you some techniques. I remember called the chicken wing, and I just went and did it because everyone was there, and that was just I felt like it was the only option. Again, there was significant doubt as I was standing in line, but when it was time to go, you just went and did it. It's just kind of what you had to do. Um, so that was one piece I think on resilience and confidence. Another piece was a big impact for me at the Naval Academy was being on the crew team at the academy. Some of my best friends to this day still are from the crew team. And then plebe year, you do something called chow calls, where 5 minutes and 10 minutes before every formation, the plebe go out and have a big spiel that you have to memorize, and you have to roll through, and you tell menus and number of days till certain events, and it's just part of the pressurization package to say, hey, how do you deal with pressure? How do you learn information? How do you then recommunicate that information in a standard format? Well, I was out at one of these shout calls, and there was a guy who was a manager on the lightweight crew team. And he's like, hey, what do you want to do when you get out? I'm like, I want to be a SWO, because at first I wanted to be a surface warfare officer, ship driver. When I was in the Boy Scouts, we had toured a frigate, and I thought that was kind of cool. Looking back on it, the frigate is like the least cool ship we have. We don't even have them anymore. And then he goes, do you know that SWOs don't sleep? I'm like, what? I don't like not sleeping. I kind of like sleeping. And he goes, if you go aviation, you're gonna have a lot more fun, and it's mandatory to sleep. I'm like, I'm out. I'm going aviation. And then also, again, Wally Massenberg had been a P3 pilot, so I knew a little bit of aviation from there. So and then that's when I started focusing on wanting to go aviation from that part. And then the second half of your question, Ty, the process is going into your senior year, you put in your list of what you want, a priority list. And then they've got some level of formula where they go through your class rank versus your what you want versus how many jobs they have to fill in each role. So and then they kind of mesh that together. This year's senior class just found out where they're going to go last week. I saw a bunch of stuff on social media last week that they just found out what they're going to select. And then later on in January, they have what's called service selection night. And the surface warfare folks actually go and pick their ship. The aviation folks go and pick their flight school date. So you actually go through and decide how you're going to take the next step on that service assignment night. So you actually find out earlier in the year, and then later on you figure out the other components. So that's the quick part of the process.
So we're known to jump all around, and I realized I forgot something about your crew career. I vaguely remember that there was, and back then we didn't have a lot of news, so I must have read it in the Baltimore Sun or saw it on ESPN Top 10 about how one of your opponents fell into the icy cold river, and I guess his teammates left him to drown, and you turned your boat around and swooped him up into your arms and saved his life or something. Am I remembering this correctly?
They didn't quite leave him to drown, but every once in a while on crew, there's something called catching a crab. So if you don't get your oar out fast enough at the finish, your oar can get stuck and swing out of the boat because the boat's moving that way. And if you don't bring your oar out of the water, it's not good. The worst crab, though, the oar can actually catch you under the armpit and pull you right out of the boat.
Oh, man.
So it was at the head of the Charles Regatta. The head of the Charles, there's a 180-degree turn towards the end of the race. Sadly, it was the University of Wisconsin. They had passed us earlier in the race. They only had about a half a length, so 30 feet of water between their boat and our boat. And I can barely even see the boat because we're following buoys going around. He caught a crab, and I just saw him, and I stopped the boat and held some water. Because realistically, if I hadn't stopped, we probably would have put our bow through his head at about 12 knots. That would have been a bad day. And then we ended up stopping, helping him, waiting for a official to come over and make sure that he was safe. And then we continued on and finished the race. Coach was fired up because he didn't see what had happened. He just saw how far behind we were on other stuff. He was like, what happened? And I was like, as we're going in, I'm telling him about it. I'm like, hey, let's wait and tell coach what happened after we get out of the water. Let's get the boat up. Oh no, he wanted none of that. He wanted to know right away. The other thing, I was a sophomore, and at the time the crew team still actually had a freshman event. Rowing had a freshman team at the collegiate level up until about 6 or 7 years ago, really. Where in the freshman event, was scored as many points as the second varsity in the national level races. So as a sophomore to have the first varsity in the fall was fairly significant. But I also was clearly one of the junior guys in the boat, but also the guy that made the decision. So,
Right. Brett, as you started talking about rowing, it just hit me. That might be the ultimate team sport because everyone literally has to be rowing in the same direction. But that might be the ultimate team sport. It just hit me. How much did that help you at the Naval Academy? Being a part of a team, knowing your role, knowing what to do at the Naval Academy.
absolutely. And it is, I think it is the ultimate team sport. And I believe it helped me more after the Naval Academy. It created additional challenges at the Naval Academy because you have that tension of doing a D1 sport and trying to do school and the military
Right.
things and all the other pieces. And the boathouse is on the far edge of campus. So even just going to practice, you've got a 15, 20-minute walk each way. So you're eating 40 minutes out of your day just getting there and back before you even do anything else. So there was that tension there, but I felt that what I got from doing the sport on the back end well exceeded any of the additional challenges there.
Very cool.
Okay.
One other piece I wanted to hit on that I think is important going back to the high school transition to Navy and rowing. Again, we talked about my high school team was pretty much nationally renowned. I didn't necessarily do great in high school. I was never in the top boat. But my last 2 years, I was in the fours. The fours tend to be the best guys are always in the eights. I tended to be in the fours, but the fours coach was a guy named Chris McElroy, and he was just a phenomenal human being, just a great guy. I'll never forget Wednesdays. We'd actually go to Franklin Field, University of Pennsylvania's Franklin Field, and do stairs. We'd do the whole horseshoe stairs before
Ooh.
practice started, and then do speed work. So it was like a speed day. But the other thing is, I didn't want to do crew my senior year, like my spring season. I wanted to hang out with my buddies and enjoy the end of my time, but I hadn't gotten into the Naval Academy yet. And my parents sat down. I remember sitting at the kitchen counter, and they said, "Look, you don't have to do career your senior year if you don't want to, but you have to tell the coaches at Navy that you're not doing it." As I found out later, they blue chipped me, so that helped get in as well. But I don't know how that would have gone. And they would have said, they all said, "Hey, you have to let them know it's because you have some challenges with your coach." The head coach was like a full on stereotypical top program coach. He was a screamer. He'd get fired up. But at the same time, our school ended up going to the
Right.
Henley Regatta like every 3 to 4 years. Won the major races, Stokesbury Nationals every 3 to 4 years, both races. So sometimes that's what happens. Again, with the things you find out later, I found out that even though I was in lower boats, my coach had great things to say to me at the collegiate level. So even though I didn't realize it, there was that perception was a little bit different on where we're going. So the two pieces there is interactions with a challenging high school coach. You just got to kind of work your way through it. It's part of life, and it's a really good learning environment. And the second part is you just got to be honest with what you're doing, and you have to realize risks that you're taking if you decide not to do something, or whether or not you stick with it and do it anyway.
Right
And I
on.
guess a little bit of sometimes the coach or the boss is hard on you because they see promise,
Yep,
right?
absolutely.
And I think sometimes when you're young, you don't get that. You're like, "Why are they picking on me?" As you leave the Naval Academy and you're going to flight school, how does that process work that you end up helicopters or airplanes or how it work?
So at service assignment night, you pick a date. I actually had originally picked a date in August, and I was going to go to Vance Air Force Base. There's actually a certain number of Navy students that get trained by the Air Force, and a certain number of Air Force folks get trained by the Navy. I ended up breaking my arm in August, so I got extended at the Naval Academy till November, and then I went down to Pensacola. So you go through flight school. The normal process is you get grades on every flight, and then at the end of a section of flight school called primary, they determine, similar to when you picked at the Naval Academy, they take what you want to do, what your grades are, and how many slots are available that week, and divide you up between. At the time, it was props, P3s. Now it's MPRA, P8s. They fly 737 equivalents now, and then jets or helicopters are pretty much your choices. And then from there, the training splits, and you go to different types of squadrons for the advanced portion of training in either one of those. So when I got to Pensacola, though, one of the first things you do is called they do another medical evaluation.
Wait, real
And
quick.
one,
I'm sorry,
yeah.
Brett. So which one did you pick?
So I actually picked P3s and got assigned helicopters.
Okay. All right. And
So,
you're
and
psyched with that. Cool with that.
it worked out great in the
Okay.
end of the day. I
Right. But
really
you were
enjoyed
fine with
going out.
P3. Yep.
Yeah, I would have been good with either one of them.
Okay.
Again, I had P3 is one of the couple things. Again, my dad's buddy, that's what he had done. So I was looking
Cool.
at that.
Yeah.
Also, those guys, when they deploy, they don't deploy on ships. They deploy to places with BOQ rooms or whatever else, and they also tend to get per diem. So when you're
Yep.
on deployment, you're getting you're actually making money on deployment as
There you
opposed
go.
to and you're on land normally and you're flying longer flights. And for some of those guys that want to go to the airlines later on, you're getting a lot of multi-engine time. So there are some other advantages. The helicopters I ended up flying, I ended up doing anti-submarine warfare anyway, and I really enjoyed doing that aspect in that mission. Going back to the beginning of flight school, though, it's the where my call sign came from.
There we go.
Part of that medical evaluation, they sit you in a box and they measure your hip to knee and your sitting height and your arm length. And they put it across a chart, and there's either green, yellow, or red. And if you're yellow on this chart, you do what's called a fit check. So they fly airplanes into Pensacola every 2 to 3 months, and you go sit in whatever plane you had the challenge on. So I was in the yellow for jets. So there's 2 jets, a T-45 and a T-2. And the T-2, you could also fly E-2Cs, the Hawkeye, or jets. The T-45 was all jets. So I go to the T-45 first, and this guy pulls out a 3-page checklist, and he's like, can you hit the megahertz knob on the radio? I'm like, yes. And he's like, can you hit the kilohertz knob on the radio, like right next to it? I'm like, yes. He had me touch everything in the cockpit. And there was one thing, it was the T2 first, I'm sorry, like the resting gear hook that I was a little bit close on. He goes, I'll have the other guy take a look at it. Go to the T-45, and that guy was a lieutenant commander. So for people in the Navy that watch this part will be semi-entertaining. The other guy was a lieutenant. The lieutenant goes, all right, what's the furthest thing away on here? Looks at the pilot and goes, what's he got to touch with his harness locked? He goes, he's got to touch the MFD. Locks my harness, put my arm out, and I was like, that far away. The guy goes, damn, you got little T-Rex arms. I'm like, oh, boy.
You know it.
So
Yep.
we're walking back to T2. I'm like, hey, this guy's going to ask. I didn't think I wanted to do E2. So I'm like, if I can fly that and not this other one and not that one, the only thing would be T2. So he's like, I just got to call it how I see it. And he goes, no, this guy's arms are way too short. And then that same guy ended up teaching like a safety class in ground school. It's like, oh, the T-Rex guy's in here. We got problems. Everyone's like, nope.
Oh.
And then in primary, we have safety stand downs once a quarter, and he was one of the stations there. So it was stuck and done from there. So
That's awesome.
So my arms are abnormally short. I was unable to fly jets because my arms are too short.
Oh, man.
That's brutal.
So,
That is
Brett, I have
brutal.
a question, because for people who join, and this is really because you've been a captain, you've seen all these people come through the Navy. At this stage of your career, what's the difference if you're coming out of the Naval Academy versus if you were coming out of college, ROTC, versus if you're just coming out of college and you're like, didn't do anything military and you want to join the military, versus coming out of high school? Like, are these how do these jobs become eligible for different backgrounds?
Gotcha. So the third option is called Officer Candidate School, OCS.
Mhm.
And folks coming through Officer Candidate School are either folks that just came right out of college that wanted to join. But some of those folks are also prior enlisted who they served their country in the enlisted ranks, and they got their degree on their own and then applied to go to Officer Candidate School. So literally they could go from like a second class petty officer, turn a wrench on an airplane, go up to Newport, Rhode Island for 12 weeks with a bunch of gunnery sergeants and come out and be an ensign. Or you could be like one of my best friends in the Navy from my first squadron. He went to University of Florida and was literally like selling cell phones at the mall. And it's like, I want to fly. The Air Force wouldn't guarantee him flight. The Navy would. So he went into the Navy. So I'll tell you the biggest difference at the beginning is the comfort level and the fact that you know people. Like if you went to the Naval Academy, the chances that when you're at flight school, like 1 or 2 of your buddies is there is really high. The probability you're going to be one degree of Kevin Bacon is like 100%. Like, so your connections and the ability to just have a group and have a crew and have study guys or people to go out with or whatever else is huge from there. ROTC is in the middle.
Yep. So, but when you come out of the Naval Academy or any of those ways, you're an ensign. That's your rank, is ensign.
Yep. Everyone is an ensign. Everyone starts at the bottom.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is you end up having lineal numbers. So they actually take everyone from the Naval Academy and ROTC and merge you in based on your class rank. I don't know how they figure out the ROTC class ranks, but you actually have, even within every rank, there's a number and there's a level of seniority within each rank. And so all Naval Academy and ROTC people are given the same base date and merged together. And then OCS, you're ranked within your OCS class. And then whatever date you commissioned is where you're in that list.
And is that similar for the other branches of the military? That same concept?
It is. I know the Marine Corps just because the Naval Academy graduates also Marine Corps is an option. For the Marine Corps, they end up doing their lineal ranking out of the basic school. So everyone, no matter what your commissioning source is for the Marine Corps, goes to something called the basic school, and they come out with their initial lineal list based on performance at the basic school against your peers.
Okay. And it sounds like it's a little bit like the civilian world in that, like, maybe your college or your major gets the door open for that first job, but once you're in, it's just about what you do when you're there, right?
It should be, and most of the time it is.
Uh-huh.
Again, who you know can make a difference. I mean, when you start looking at promotion boards, and really one of our bigger ones is administrative boards. And sometimes people like to joke and say ducks pick ducks. So,
Uh-huh.
and the bottom line is, if you're performing, you're going to do better moving forward.
Sure.
Is generally what I've seen.
Yeah.
Sure.
Would you I'm trying to nail down the overall issue is some people know what they wanna do at 16, some people know what they wanna do at 18, some people might not know till 23, 24. It's not too late to have a career in the military if that's something you're interested in.
Absolutely. And then the other piece I've got for folks later in life, there, the My Navy HR.navy.mil is our HR department website. And they actually have the commission requirements for every designator, so every different type of role, surface warfare officer, pilot, and then for what I do now, information professional. There's actually a sheet of, here's the grades you need, here's how old you need to be, et cetera. I think for aviation and surface warfare, most of those line officers, you have to go to OCS before you're 28, I believe. But for some of the other communities, it can be as late as like 35. And
Wow.
you can still join and start off as an ensign and go from there.
Hmm.
And then when you're young and in the Navy, when do people start getting an idea that they wanna be there for their whole career, or when are they just paying back their time and they're gonna use that as a jumping board to something else?
Yeah, so it depends. I'll give a couple examples on that. One of my buddies was a submarine officer. He knew like his goal, and he was super focused. He still is a really focused guy. He wanted to go to the Naval Academy. He wanted to go submarines. He wanted to get out the day he could. He wanted to go to Harvard Business School, wanted to work for a consulting firm, and then get in on an executive track. So he went submarines, got out the day he could, went to Harvard Business School, went and worked at BCG for like 2.5 years, got to the point where he ran a project. The other side, like aviation or surface warfare and submarines, your commitment's 5 years after you graduate. For aviation, your commitment is 8 years after you get your wings.
Oh,
So it's
how long
anywhere
does that
from
take? Yeah.
it's anywhere for Navy flight officers can be about a year and a quarter, year and a half. To jet guys, it can take up to 3 to 4 years. So now you're talking anywhere from 9.5 to 12 year commitment on the front end. I'd say the biggest times folks normally make a decision is when their initial commitment is up, and then about the 10, 11 year mark, because then you're kind of like, if I go more than this, I'm kind of pot committed. Right.
Right.
So that's a little bit of some of the major decision points. The other thing, aviation, right around that time that you would be getting out, they throw a bonus at you. So in my time, it was like $125,000 paid out over 5 years. So it's still pretty decent money. Now for jet guys right now, because they've got a challenge keeping enough pilots to get to department head and command, the bonus is $250,000. So they're throwing you, if you commit for an extra 5 years, they're throwing a fairly large chunk of money at you.
Yeah.
That gets you to 15. So they also know they're looking to bridge decision points
Right.
for some of
So
that.
so at this point, how long are you in? How long is your career?
Let's see, I'm just went over 26 years in May of towards retirement. But I'm all the way at the 30 years since no, it's 2025. I'm sorry, 25 years. And then next July it'll be 30 years in uniform, but only 26 years of total service from a
Gotcha.
pay retirement perspective.
Amazing. So, all right. So you're flying helicopters. What were you doing that you can tell us about?
Yeah,
And
so the helicopter
if
I
you
was
can't
flying,
tell us anyway.
no, we can tell you most of this. The helicopter I was flying it was initially the SH-60 Bravo, which flew its last flight about 10 years ago. So I guess I'm getting old.
You are.
And then I transitioned to the MH-60 Romeo, and the primary missions were anti-submarine and anti-surface warfare. And then we also had an electronic warfare mission set that we were able to conduct. So the MH-60 Romeo primarily flies off cruisers, destroyers, and frigates, and then off the aircraft carrier as well. And you're protecting the strike group from submarines and from surface threats. So it was pretty legit. It was a lot of
Yeah,
fun.
pretty legit.
Over,
Yeah.
over my time, I flew off. I deployed on a frigate, and then after that, I deployed on a cruiser, uh, USS Princeton, and the cruiser tends to be the shotgun of the aircraft carrier, so it's the primary air defense for the aircraft carrier. And then later on, and then I went to shore duty in Patuxent River, and then I did some staff work on a destroyer squadron staff, where our
Right.
job was to coordinate all anti-submarine and anti-surface warfare. And then I was the helicopter operations officer, so my job, or air ops, so my job was to coordinate all air platforms that were then supporting that mission. And on that, for deployment, we deployed on the aircraft carrier. So I deployed in the carrier for that.
And
So
where
So
did
it's
you deploy to?
so my first deployment, we went and did counter narcotics operations. So I guess it's a little more interesting to say that now, but I was in the most of the time was in the Eastern Pacific, but we got to go through the Panama Canal. Really cool experience. And then did some time in the Caribbean from there, and then back through the Panama Canal to get back home. One cool little side note: we had a port visit in Ocho Rios, Jamaica, and it just so happened my Aunt Megan and Jay Baldecki were there on vacation. So I got to catch up with them for a cocktail in Ocho Rios, just completely
that's
randomly on
hilarious.
deployment.
Oh,
Oh
that's
my
fun.
God, that's so
Yeah.
cool.
And then my second deployment, we went over to the CENTCOM, so the Middle East, but we went via the Pacific Ocean. So I got to stop in Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia. Other deployments, I ended up going to Thailand. I've been to Dubai 4 or 5 times, Bahrain a couple times. Landed in Djibouti on a logistics run once. So I've kind of been all over. I think the only continent I haven't been to is Antarctica.
How about the Middle East? I mean, was there much
So
in the
the
Middle
Middle
East?
East, the
Like,
more interesting part. So I did a fair number of Strait of Hormuz transits. So
uh,
going through the Strait of Hormuz and flying protection for the aircraft carrier for the strike group. So the helicopter we had on as part of our anti-surface warfare mission, we had a radar, really good surface radar, and we're able to send tracks back. We also, when we were going through the Strait of Hormuz, we were flying with missiles. We had a 50 cal gun, so we were ready to protect the strike group if the Iranians decided to get a little froggy.
So you have a young family right now, um, and for the Waldron girls, your daughters are like they're like Taylor Swift. They are like, you're not gonna believe what you did today, and they're the funniest girls. But so talk about that. I mean, that's a big commitment for you, obviously, but for your family. So what's your longest deployment that you've been away from your family?
So realistically, I ended up lat transferring before from helicopters to information professional before Katie and I were dating or married. So
Okay.
the most of my deployments were when I was young and single. But in all honesty, on both sides of things, I was married previously, and my ex-wife had been in the Navy as well. And literally the whatever 2.5 years before we split up, I think we were together in the same place for maybe 6 months.
Wow.
So that probably didn't help things.
Right.
I'll be honest, it worked out for the better. Katie's way
Yeah.
better than she was. So it's way better. But at the end of the day, like going
now we're
through
gonna get
those,
canceled.
Now that was the one. That was the
so
one.
going through and seeing like, so there are a lot of challenges there. But even without deployments, the moving is still really hard.
Sure.
So when you walk back, we moved, I think 5 times in a 6 year period,
Wow.
or it was 4 times in a 5 year period. And most of those we added a human. So and we went from DC to Hawaii when Mary Fran was 5 months old. Then we went from Hawaii to San Diego. Mary Fran was 2 and Annie was 2 months old.
Right.
Literally, like we did her 2 month appointment. 2 days later, we got on a plane and went to San Diego. 2 years later, we went back from San Diego to Hawaii, and obviously all horrible places.
Yeah. But
And
So,
but
Brett,
Mary
I
Fran
do
was
have a
wait,
four,
question
Annie
about.
was 2, and Katie was 7 months pregnant with James. So
There you go.
it was so there wasn't necessarily deployments, but there's significant other stressors
Sure.
related to the military on moving.
But real quick then, were you ever upset that you kept moving further and further away from your brothers?
Never. I mean, there's always a little bit of a threat as long as you're on the same Earth as a jaybird, but they
Yeah.
otherwise it's we're doing
Okay. All right.
So
FaceTime is always good.
is that part of the benefit of the Navy that you were bouncing back between, Hawaii and San Diego? I'm just thinking about my dad was in the military, and we were bouncing to Fort Rucker, Alabama, which I loved, but I'm not sure my mom loved Fort Rucker, Alabama. I think she liked that stage of her life, but her dream was probably not to live in Fort Rucker, Alabama.
Yeah, so two pieces on that. The Navy tends to have better living places than the Army. It's
Uh-huh.
just a fact. And then the other thing is, some people ask me, "What was your favorite place to live?" I really enjoyed the places I've lived for the stage of life I've been in. Everywhere I've been, I feel like I've been in really good places for the stage of life. Going back to my being a junior officer in helicopters, I lived in Pacific Beach, San Diego. I just being in your mid-20s, half the squadron lived there. All your buddies, all the guys you went through flight school with, it was a blast. So you were deploying, you were working hard at work, and then going out and hanging out in Pacific Beach. It was phenomenal.
So wait, let me
Um,
get this straight. You're single, you're living basically at the beach, you're a pilot, right? You're still an O'Donovan. And so you still have the same skin complexion that all of us have here. You still must have been pulling some tail. Come on.
so my girlfriend at the time decided to move out there, and my little
Why?
brother Jay goes, dude, why are you bringing sand to the beach?
See,
Like
Jay has always
Jaybird.
been wise beyond his years.
No, it was awesome. We had a great time. We had a blast during those times, and then I went to Pax River after that, which is way different than Pacific Beach.
Yeah,
But the cool part there was getting back to the East Coast, being closer to family.
sure. You gotta do what you gotta do.
Um, it was great. It was really good to be back on the East Coast. It was great to be able to like catch up a lot of my buddies. It was awesome.
So
But San Diego and Hawaii, it just in my community, once you hit senior lieutenant commander, the boss and mentor who ended up working at in Millington, where our HR folks are, he said, "Yeah, you're on the treadmill." So once you're in a spot, if you're what we call due course, so if you're still tracking towards the next rank, you're probably moving every 20 to 26 months in
wow.
my time frame. I was lucky where just timing worked out, where the places I wanted to go happened to be available at the time. So
Brett, in every podcaster's career, there's a fork in the road, and we have two choices right now. We can either go down the road of when you were a young single pilot and hearing the advice that Brian Klepper, Devin Klepper, Tim Klepper, and Todd O'Donovan gave you on how to have the best pickup lines, or we can talk about leadership. I'm voting that we talk about leadership and we keep this podcast going without getting canceled.
Well,
I'm going to hit on one part.
wait a second.
Wait,
I
Matt gets a
agree to
vote.
Ty. I'd rather hear about leadership and those 5 lady slayers that you just rolled off. I don't want to hear any of their pickup lines, okay? Because they weren't putting up the numbers. All right.
The one part I will touch on from the JO time that'll kind of feed into this is the squadron I was in was phenomenal. The guys that I was there with were awesome. I'm still great friends with a lot of them. And it was a work hard, play hard atmosphere. So the guy I was telling you about before, the OCS guy who went to University of Florida, there was one time where we had a difference of opinion at work. We had a fairly heated conversation, and then somebody saw us out, and it happened to be a Friday. Somebody saw us out that Friday. They're like, "Wait, are you guys talking to each other?" We're like, "Yeah, why wouldn't we be?"
Yeah,
Like, weren't you
Right.
just yelling at each other? We're like, "Yeah, that was work stuff.
Yeah.
We're
This
good
is
now."
it.
it's the
Yeah,
ability to
but
compartmentalize.
absolutely. And then, but we had a really good leadership at that time of the squadron. I talked about my lateral transfer. Part of the reason I did that, I mentioned early on, I was interested in computers and computer science. I got to a point in my career where I realized I'm not going to fly as much, but I was also still like 5 or 6 years to retirement. I'm like, what am I going to do? I think I want to, if I'm going to do staff work anyway. And there is one of my first department heads in the Navy, a guy named Tom Braden. His best friend from being a JO, so his time with the camaraderie, was a guy named Bill Chase. Bill Chase ended up lat transferring similar to when I did as an '05. So I saw that it was possible, and I liked some of the communication stuff I did when I did the staff work on the Desron on the carrier. So, and how can I continue to lead and bring what I believe is going to be more value to the organization? So I went out and I talked to Bill Chase, and I was at the Navy War College in Newport at the time. There was an IT there that was a senior guy. I talked to him and picked his brain. And I tried to take classes that aligned to that. So I tried to set myself up going that direction. And then also from there, I talked to the detailer and said, give me anything IT related in the DC area. They ended up sending me to OpNav staff, so the CNO staff. Real cool part there. I was the requirements officer for a satellite program. So I learned a lot about satellites. I also learned a lot about cross-organizational leadership, I'll call it. So when you're in a group and you don't necessarily have authority, how do you still try and work through and get to the right answer? How do you work through and negotiate across a couple organizations? How do you learn from other people in that way? So I got a little rambly there. Sorry about that. But those other pieces and that transition was hugely monumental.
So what is your leadership style, would you say?
So I've been working through. I mean, again, I'll tell you that I tend to be direct and blunt, and there are times when I'm also finding that that's harder. One of the interesting things is I do get into. I like asking a lot of questions. And the balance between where's the difference between micromanagement and making sure you understand something's on board is something I've worked through a lot. So as a junior officer, I was told, hey, you're a micromanager. I'm like, no, I'm not telling anyone how to do something. I just need the thing to get done. And we're just double checking to make sure that something is on track. As I got into larger organizations, and really it started when I was in command in San Diego, I realized, you know what, people are going to do it different than me. And then on the other part of I figured out at least half the time it's probably going to be better. So how do you actually allow that to happen and make sure that something doesn't go off the guardrails? So those are things that I've been working through a lot in just how do you approach that? How do you make people accountable, but also make sure you empower them that they can't get outvoted by a group? How do you actually figure out who's responsible for the next task, who's going to do the next task, and how's it going to get completed, aligned with the unit's priorities? So those are
Yeah.
yep, those are the biggest pieces I'm looking at.
Um, do you have a mentor that kind of showed you that, or is that something you just developed over time? Or is that just the way for your T-Rex? That's just you've always asked a lot of questions. I feel like you
I,
always ask a lot of annoying questions, to be honest.
100%.
Okay.
Like, why did you do that to my brother in the middle of the first fairway? The
That was a fair question, but I think
I,
I think it's all
I
paid
kept
off.
you from getting canceled though. So
Yeah. Yeah.
no, I did always ask a lot of questions. So I think that was a piece of it. I think the bigger thing is refining it to when, and it's still something I struggle with because I'm an extreme extrovert. So as you get more senior, you have to be careful
Right.
on shutting people down completely or having people think that just because you said it, it's the way we need to go. Because I'll tend to think out loud a little bit. So working on balancing that is something that's been a struggle. But the other pieces on that is how do you leverage the senior people around you? So at least in the Navy, when you're in command, you have a command master chief, a senior enlisted, you have an executive officer, and then you kind of find the other people around you because I know what those weaknesses are. I know that I'll do that. So I let folks know, hey, this is what I'm expecting. Here's how I'm going to operate. You are in a position where I need you to call me on this. I expect you to. So in finding the right people that will do that and trying to find the places where how do I make sure that I check my weaknesses, I think is really important.
As we pivot here to the thought of serving your country, I mean, obviously that's something that you should be very proud of. There's also the aspect of you've had a fascinating career, ups and downs. You're obviously very enthusiastic about it. Is serving your country something that has always been in your mind, or is it something more you're like, hey, this job is really interesting. I'm learning all this stuff. I'm loving being part of a team. I'm loving leading. And then you kind of every once in a while remind yourself, oh yeah, and I'm also serving my country. Like, how does that fit in?
It absolutely fits in. I think the other piece that it fits in is really looking to make sure that you're mission focused. Because realistically, anything we do at any place that we've been, when I was flying helicopters, running the radar and looking to find contacts, that was part of a larger mission that the strike group was trying to either move from point A to point B, or we're protecting the carriers so they could send jets into Afghanistan, or what are those different pieces that we're doing now, providing I'm technically in operational command of all Navy networks at the secret and unclassed level. So what are those networks actually doing? Like I'm less worried about, I should be less worried about the network itself than the folks using it. So got it. Cyber is important and we have to secure and protect that information. We have to protect that network. But what is the human on the other end of that keyboard actually doing? Like they're using the network to actually do functions. They're in the Pentagon, they're working budget. If they're out on a ship, they're actually looking to execute a target. And like, I think that's the biggest thing is how does what I do impact the overall mission? And within that, where is that service to the country and executing what our national goals are?
Awesome. That's so cool.
And what would be your big advice, for somebody who is thinking about a military career? Like, would it be talk to people? Are there any books you recommend? What would you say?
I, I would think you definitely want to talk to people, and you've got to look at the pros and cons, and you have to understand what do you want to do and why. Again, some of the pros and cons I learned rapidly was the SWOs don't sleep and pilots do. It was a
Yeah, it's
piece of
whatever
that, and
resonates,
I'm like
right?
that's important to me. I'm going
Yep.
to take. But the other thing is, each of the services have their own pieces. Again, we talked a little bit. The Army are probably going to live in Fort Rucker or El Paso. The Navy will live in like Virginia Beach or San Diego. You can. It's a fact of life on where those things are. But the biggest thing is, hey, talk to folks. But the other thing is, if it's something you think you want to do and you're dedicated to, do it. So I think the biggest thing is talk to folks, have a good understanding what you're getting into. The other thing, honestly, if somebody tells you all the good things, you probably need to find somebody else.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
if somebody doesn't give you at least one or two cons, you're probably just getting sold something. Similarly, mentoring now, I've had the honor of mentoring a lot of folks junior to me. I've written recommendations for Officer Candidate School for enlisted guys. I've written recommendations for officers for different pieces. And one of the things I tell them, they say, "Hey, what should I do next?" I go, "Here's the things that I think you should do, or here's the things you can do. If you do this thing that you want to do, you may accrue this career risk. If you do this straight career thing, you may miss an opportunity to do something cool that you want to do. But realistically, you just have to understand why you're doing that thing." And then the other thing at the end of at the end of the conversation, I always tell them, make sure you go talk to somebody else. And sometimes I'll give them two or three people to talk to. And I ask them that if somebody tells you completely opposite of what I'm telling you, please double back with me because I mentor other people. If somebody else thinks I'm completely off board, let me know that
Right.
and then tell me who that person is. And I can judge that guy's a moron anyway, or, oh, wow, I need to tweak the
Yeah,
advice I'm giving.
that's smart.
The guy I was telling you about, my mentor, Bill Chase, he lat transferred like I did as a commander way late in his career, and he ended up retiring as a two-star admiral. So it
Wow.
was,
Okay.
I mean, it was a pretty significant shift. It was a pretty big move, and then not only that, he was our community lead. The positive impact he had on our community as a whole, and the information professional community didn't start until the early 2000s. So it's a relatively new community as well, and the impact that he had overall on the community was really phenomenal.
That's awesome.
I
That's so
if
good.
you're the kind of personality who likes that moving jobs, moving up the ladder, moving different locations, I imagine it's great for you. And if you just want one job for 30 years, it's probably not great for you. Would you say
That's
that's
fair.
true?
Yeah, because it's an up or out mentality as well. So I mean, realistically, there are a couple spots where you could sit and just do a couple things, but you're still going to move every 2 to 3 years, or at least change job every two to 3 years. And then the other side of that, a lot of challenge folks have is like this game's going to end eventually, no matter what. And then even guys that are retire as one or two-star admirals are retiring in their mid 50s. So almost everyone's got legs left afterwards. And there's a lot of folks that retire at the 06 level, again, are in their late 40s, early 50s. Like you're still going to work after that.
Sure.
And a lot of the challenge is it's a very structured HR process through your time in the Navy is when you go into the real world, if you will, how do you manage the different opportunities you have, and when you decide this isn't working and I need to go somewhere else. So I just in preparation for whenever that time comes, I've been talking to a lot of just contacts and folks that have gotten out in the last 3 or 4 years, and that's a major issue for a lot of retiring senior folks is how do I find the right job? Where do I fit in? Is it okay to do the same thing? And when do I determine this isn't the right thing or I didn't go to the right direction? So it's
Right. And then you have
that.
to start talking not in acronyms. That's gonna be really tough for you
Yeah.
all. So
Did
So
did I use
who
too many acronyms? I thought I
yeah.
spelled most of them out.
Who is your like favorite historical military figure? Like, do you have somebody who like that's like your person like that you look up to?
And I think I've got to go Bull Halsey. World War II.
Uh-huh.
He was pretty awesome. Just he led aggressively. He made decisions. A couple times he failed and had problems, but he took ownership for those things and moved on. And that aggressiveness and that push, I think, really was significant in helping us win the Pacific.
That's
Wow.
awesome.
Okay. Cool.
Brett, we've taken up a lot of your Sunday. I appreciate it. Good stuff. Congratulations on a career that's still going, but it's pretty impressive. You know, your focus from 5th grade on has gotten you where you are today, and I love seeing that kind of stuff. So I love seeing hard work pay off like it has with you. So
Yeah,
you're a good man, and
this
thanks
was
for sharing
great.
this.
Thank
This
you
is
so much.
awesome.
And just give us your Eagles prediction. How are they gonna do this year?
Thanks, fellas. Appreciate it. Hopefully the Eagles rebound. I've got a buddy that's comparing them to the 2023 Eagles. They just snuck out some cheap wins early, and then the wheels came off. I'm just hoping that's not the case. But go Birds.
Go
Okay.
Birds, go Navy, beat Army.
All right.
Sure.